Hello and welcome to season 2 of Coffee with Candace. I have missed you all so much. But before we get into business, you know what to do. If you like this podcast, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, especially on YouTube. It allows people to find us. Now, getting into it, I made sure that I kicked off the season with someone I absolutely adore and admire. Her name is Alison Armstrong, and she has dedicated 30 years of her life to studying men. I know, ladies. Bring out the popcorn because you're not going to want to miss this episode. Make sure that you visit Alison on understandingmen.com. Understandmen.com. It will be linked in the bio. And without further ado, here's Alison. Alison Armstrong. I mean, you are someone I've been so looking forward to speaking to. And you know this because we had just a bit of a conversation before I got started. Your work is something I discovered actually by complete accident. I was going through a breakup, and obviously, as we all tend to do, I was just Googling, like, why are men like this? Why are people like this? You know? And I accidentally came across a podcast and I heard you speaking. But I think what stood out to me was just the beauty at which you described men. And I thought, I wonder where she lives because I want to meet the men she's meeting, because they sound divine. And the more you spoke, I just realized you've done so much research. I mean, you've got over 30 years of experience studying men. And that's where I want to start us actually. What got you into studying men of all things?
Well, um, the Queen's Code, right, relays much of the story. That actually happened to me. I'd been through a marriage that was miserable, and then I'd been single, and I didn't realize how much my interactions with men had been affected by my past. Um, but it got revealed as I started studying men, which was the impetus for that was my girlfriend was called a frog farmer. And the man who called her that in front of about 120 people, um, explained that some women turn frogs into princes, and she was turning princes into frogs. And she completely rebuffed the comment. I mean, she honestly stuck her tongue out at his back when he turned around. And I was struck by it because at the time I had a low opinion of men would not really be fair to say. I thought they were subhuman. I questioned whether they had souls. I knew they had no feelings, so it didn't matter what you said or did to them because you couldn't hurt them. I mean, I really got to uncover in the process of studying men and a dear friend who literally saved my life by pointing out the ways that I was emasculating them, the ways I was antagonizing their instinct to self-protect, which we'll talk about some more. But that's how it started. And it was in February of 1991. And I thought it would take 2 or 3 months to learn everything that was worth knowing about these shallow, soulless creatures. And and 30 years later, I'm still fascinated. And I've gone from the opinion that I had before, which was also a kind of strategy went with it, right? And it was something that my stepfather said when I was very impressionable as a preteen. He would say the best defense is a good offense. And that's how I interacted with men. I was always on the offense, and I used everything. I used my sense of humor. I used my intellect. I used my sensuality. I used my sexuality. I used everything to always keep them off balance because I was terrified of them. And if you'd asked me that, I would have went, oh no, I'm not. But I was, and that's why I kept them off balance, because then they couldn't attack. If I was on the attack, they couldn't attack me. And I didn't realize how much I was actually causing men to protect themselves from me
Mm.
instead of be protective of me, which is what's natural to men, is to be really protective towards women. They don't even have to know you. They don't have to like you. They can be mad at you. And their instincts tell them to protect us. So as I started finding out how I was bringing out the worst in men, I thought, that the key would be learning how to bring out the best in them. But when I just stopped antagonizing them, I was stunned. I like jaw drop stunned at how they started treating me before I was even nice to them. I just stopped attacking. I just stopped pushing them off balance. I just stopped like calling into question all the time their character and their integrity and their intentions. And just with a little tiny bit of maybe there's something about these people that I could trust, right? I found out what you can't trust. You can't trust them and act like women, right? And we want to trust them to act like women, right? But you can't. So, but just with a tiny bit of trust, a little bit of like waiting longer to listen to find out what they mean instead of jumping to conclusions and attacking them, questioning them and interrogating them is a word they use a lot. It didn't take much of that. And I was like 7 months into studying them when I fell in love. I fell in love with who they are. I fell in love with their motivations. And I got really curious, and it's never stopped. And I think, I became suddenly single almost 2 years ago when my husband died. And so being out there, right, as a single person, it's it's amped up my research all over again, because I met Greg. I met him like a week after I laid down my sword, after I stopped attacking men. I met Greg, and we've been together like practically ever since. So being now single and noticing the claws wanting to come out, and the questioning their motivations and what's their strategy and all that kind of stuff. It's giving me more compassion for all the women in all the various ways we have to interact with them and our own instincts at the same time.
Wow. I mean, you just covered so much. And
I
I mean,
did.
no, and I absolutely love it because there's so many things I want to dissect slowly, and one of
Okay.
them would probably be, you just said, you had to first realize within yourself that I'm doing something that is repelling them or, pushing them away. Because I think for women, it is a little hard, to go into something without being like, what do you want from me? Society's taught me that you always want something. So what is it, right? And so when we enter these zones of dating, when books like The Art of Seduction, for example, are so popular, and in The Art of Seduction, it's all about manipulation, mind play, whoever's got the upper hand, as you were saying, like, using your sensuality, sexuality, intellect, humor to throw them off balance so you could have the upper hand. How did you navigate your way from saying, I'm not going to be on the defensive, but I'm going to enter this from an open place, now that you're dating again?
Well, I had to start doing it back then in 1991 because I was single at the time. And what happened was as I started studying men and learning key things about them, I didn't realize that I was listening from and learning from Know Thy Enemy. So everything I learned, I used to manipulate them more carefully, to keep them off balance even more effectively. And this is why when I made the commitment to writing a book that would teach women what I'd learned, that I chose fiction. And I chose fiction in a way that you got to work to get the lessons. Because when I first just started telling women straight out what I found out about men, they did the same thing I'd done. They used it against men. And so that's when I realized that it wasn't just understanding men, but transforming the way we relate to them, that those have to go together or we're actually worse off. So I mentioned the woman who saved my life. I was 6 months into studying men. I actually had been engaged to somebody in between who proposed on our first date. That's how effective I had become very quickly. And when the relationship ended, she was a friend of his, and she knew me, she knew my ex-husband, she knew my son, who was 3 at the time. And she called me up and she said, Alison, we got to talk, because men are attracted to you like bees to honey. And when you're done with them, it's as if they've been with a vampire. Yeah, little old me? Like, what are you talking about, little old me? And then she laid out for me all the ways that she'd either witnessed me emasculating a man. Another way of saying that is diminishing him and his ability to produce results. Or she knew I had because she saw the result. Like with my ex-fiance, she saw what was left of him when I was done. And as she went through each thing she'd seen me do, my reaction to it was, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, oh, that was a good one. Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's really effective. Like I came from, I'm supposed to do this. Men are dangerous. Testosterone is an evil. If you can suck their strength away, everybody's better. We're protecting our families and our society and the world itself from testosterone overgrowth, right? You think it was a candida infection or something. And I just thought I was doing my duty, and any woman who didn't emasculate men was just a doormat, and she was betraying the sisterhood and like a slacker. Like, what do you mean you're letting him get away with that? Being all full of himself and thinking he's hot shit and awesome, and like you're letting him get away with that. He needs to be taken down a peg or two. Like, really get the wind out of that guy's sails. Why are you just sitting there laughing? He's not so funny. He's an ass. I mean, yeah, I'm just this is me. This is me. And Ellen is pointing out how each of these things emasculated men, and and then she said, you're even doing it to Jeffrey, who was my 3-year-old son, is, now he's 32. And I remembered when I committed. He had just been born. I was furious with his father, who was watching the Olympics while I'm in labor. and then he went home right after Jeff was born. I'm in the hospital. I'm holding this little boy, and I looked him dead in the face and promised him, I will raise you to have brilliant relationships with women. And what I meant was I was going to carve the man right out of him. I was just like, any time he displayed this repulsive behavior, man, I would be on top of it. I wasn't gonna put up with that, like my husband's, mother had done. Just, yeah. And then when Ellen said, you're even doing it to Jeff, I could see that I'd been like trying to carve the man out of him at every turn. And what if that wasn't the right thing to do to this beautiful human being, because when he was born, I had this vision of I had sat at his feet for so many lifetimes. How the heck was I going to be his mom? Right. And I mean, he's astonishing. And so my reaction, she said, I want you to cut it out. And this is in the Queen's Code, which I'm all the characters in the Queen's Code. My reaction was, well, then how will I protect myself? And I had this, I literally had a vision of feminine power, of a woman's power, which I'd never appreciated before. And I had this sense that I would never know what it was as long as I was trying to take power from men. That it was going to be all or nothing. We were going to both be weakened together. I'd steal their power and end up with none of my own, or I was going to let them have theirs and find out what mine was. And it was a kind of leap of faith. It was kind of intuition, because there was this sense, like Kimberly describes in the Queen's Code, of this richness of power, this infinite, eternal, like nothing could overcome it. And it's really the thing that I've discovered since then. And I call it the Queen. We're extraordinary. And most of what I've learned about women being extraordinary, I learned from men describing women to me. And at first I didn't know who they were talking about. I'd never met those people. And then I finally realized, oh, this is a woman at her best that they were describing. This magical, mystical, powerful, nurturing, enchanting creature that they wanted to cherish, they wanted to serve, they wanted to protect. They felt privileged that she would pay attention to someone like them. I remember a man saying to me, so this was back in the 90s, right? He said, I don't understand why women want equality. Why are they working so hard to get equality with men? That's a step down. And oh, and then I started looking at, if you see someone as having more power than you and they're using their power against you, then you hate them, right? You're afraid of them, you hate them, you strategize to get them smaller, keep them smaller. But if they have more power than you and you're in awe of it and you're there for you, that they'll support you with their power, right? They'll nurture you with your power. They'll be like this, they're like the sun and the moon coming out and shining on you. What do? You worship them. You worship them, you protect them, you revere them. What if it's that simple? Like, truly, what if it's that simple? And add the piece of then, and we need to show men how to do that. They don't know how to do that. We need to show them, how do you cherish me? How do you respect me? How do you support me? This is what love looks like to me. Instead of assuming, because they keep doing it all wrong, that they don't want to do it.
Wow. I could literally just sit and listen to you for hours, because I was just getting chills. I was like, go on, just keep going.
I could tell it just keeps pulling it out and pulling.
No, I think it's beautiful, because I think, just the premise of your explanation, I think so many women, I mean, I myself was listening to you and relating to you from just a different perspective, of course, because of my own upbringing, community, culture, all of those things. But I've seen it in my brothers, right? Like, and especially my younger brother, and I see it in my best friend, who is like a heterosexual male too. And I see how, like, if I'm in pain or panicking in any sort of way, like, they don't know what to do, but they know that what they want to do is they're going to protect me. They're going to figure out a way to make the tears stop. They don't know how. They're just like, whatever's going on, we need to stop it. We need to stop. And it's so just, I feel so safe for them. And I think it was through my relationship with them that I thought, okay, so if I can have such a great relationship in this front and with these men, it means that not all men are bad. Men can be good, right? But what have you found, Alison? And I find this fascinating because it happens with my girlfriends all the time, right? Where they can have perfectly great platonic male relationships, but have terrible romantic relationships. As soon as they step into a male relationship, it becomes the mind games and the playing and and it's like in the art of seduction, he says I should be the rake. I should pitch up like this. And I don't know, my headgear is not standing up straight. What is it about us that makes us want to enter the theatrical part of ourselves when we're engaging in a romantic encounter with men?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about both sides of this, right? My observation, right? All these years, right? And I've been involved in transformation since I was 19 years old, right? And then I was 30 when I started studying men. And if you look at life, right? So you can look just at human beings, but you'll see it everywhere. If you look at life as a hierarchy of instincts, right? That there is this, the drive to survive is stunning in its power, and there's an approach to it. And so if you were going to think of it as a hierarchy, the first instinct for everything on the planet is procreate. And procreate isn't just sex, but it is sex. It's future generations, it's legacy, it's but it's also any kind of creation, building. You'll see entrepreneurs, right? Very much are in procreate energy. It's very exciting energy. It's very wound up. It's got hormones that support it like crazy. And then down from procreate is protect. And then down from protect is provide. Now, ideally, these work like in a spiral. You create something, you protect it, you provide for it, and you provide it to the world, right? So it's this kind of upward spiral. But mostly we have it in a downward spiral. So, for example, procreate trumps protect. Every species on the planet risks its life to have sex. This is why we have to teach safe sex. Because it's seriously, it's just trumped. Our ex-president has ruined that word for us, but it's procreate always overrules protect, and then protect overrules provide. And this is one of the things that's so important to understand, because when we're in procreate, when we have chemistry, which we initiate, right? We initiate romantic relationships with men for whom we either have physical chemistry or economic chemistry, status chemistry, right? There's things that we're attracted to strength. Okay, we're just really attracted to strength, and we want to get it. We want to get it committed to us, right? Now, ultimately, what we want from men, though, is we want them to be in provide mode. We want them to give to us. We want them to give us what we need. We want them to take care of us. But what happens is that protect there in the middle, right? So men are naturally protective towards us, right? And when they're sexually attracted to us, if they're only sexually attracted to us, it makes them, the best way to think about it is they're hungry. If they're just sexually attracted to us, we're like a refrigerator to a hungry man. Open the door, stuff your face. And instinctually, we appeal to that. We appeal to the acquisition in them, the possessiveness in them, right? What would cause jealousy? You're mine, right? So we play off of that, not knowing that we're actually inciting their most primitive instinct. So we're getting the girls all situated there, and we're getting all primped up, and we're like, and we're posing, and we're tilting our bodies to show all the curves, and we make sure our hair's all shiny, because that indicates fertility, and we suck in our stomachs because, I'm not already pregnant. You can knock me up. And yes, we do all this unconsciously and sometimes consciously. And so we're appealing to that hunger in them. Like, look at this juicy apple you could have. Not knowing that it's so loud to them, right? It's so loud that it drowns out our spirit. It drowns out how they could be intellectually attracted to us, how they could be emotionally attracted to us, how they could, as they say it, really care about us. That is the strongest emotion a man can feel towards anything or anybody, is to care. They're very careful not to care. It's a huge expenditure of energy to care. They're afraid of caring. For many of them, they think freedom is not caring about anything. But when they're intellectually and spiritually and emotionally attracted to us, it's like, right? Because they care so much. And then they want to protect us, right? They want to protect us, and they worry about us. And I was seeing a man who, he was looking in my cupboards. He opened the refrigerator, and then he's looking out my cupboards, and I said, "Are you hungry?" And he looked at me like, "Why would I ask that?" And I'm like, "You're do you need food? Are you hungry?" And then he finally went, "No, I was just making sure you had enough." Yeah, like, oh my gosh. And so they want to protect us, they want to contribute to us, they want to make us feel safe. They hate anything that scares us. They hate anything that diminishes our self-confidence. Like women's magazines, they attack women's magazines, not because they're against women, but because what they say in it is baloney. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be flawless. You don't have to do all that stuff to yourself. Just be you. I'm in love with you, right? So if you think of procreate, then protect, then provide, if we don't let them protect us, which it's hard, right? Because they'll decide how to protect us, and it's such a compelling instinct, they'll actually overrule us in order to protect us. No, you can't do that. No, you can't go there. Which then we're all up in arms. How dare you, right? And then they're like, but how do I protect you if you won't let me? There's so many ways we antagonize that instinct. And so we want men to be and provide. We want them to be in that instinct to provide for us. But when we're on the defense, when we're attacking them, when we're interrupting them, for example, which we don't know how much interrupting affects their productivity, and productivity is how they feel safe. And so if we've interrupted them, they're less productive, and now they're on the defense trying to protect their ability to be productive, like, leave me alone, right? And then we get mad and we attack. So now instead of being in provide mode, right, if we're doing things they think are unsafe, they'll be in protect mode. And if we're attacking them, now we get the worst possible scenario. They're protecting themselves from us. And that's when we get the worst of them. They're, especially, so put these together, when a man is sexually attracted to us and he knows we're using his attraction against him. Yes, we're using his attraction to manipulate him. We're using his attraction and we're threatening his resources. Well, if you just bought me one of those, then you could have this juicy apple, right? Like, I mean, they're aware of it happening and it infuriates them. I mean, we're adversaries. We're not on the same team. We're enemies negotiating sexual attraction. And the more sexually attracted we are to them, right, the more we're likely to contort ourselves, betray ourselves, put up with behavior that's unacceptable. I mean, if you look, Candace, at the difference between how you are with your brother and your best male friend, you hold boundaries with them. You come right out and say, that makes me mad. You no, don't talk to me like that. Or no, I'm tired. I don't want to get together right now. We hold all kinds of boundaries naturally with people we're not romantically involved with. We're romantically involved and we just start selling out right and left. And then we think they should treat us better than we're insisting on being treated. And then we attack them for how they treat us, but we let them treat us that way. We taught them to treat us that way. We encourage them to treat us that way. Okay.
Wow.
I'm gonna stop myself.
No, because I think you touch on these important points in everything, in all the examples you give. Because I think as women, what we assume is, but society tells us that, if a man is physically attracted to you, you need to make yourself as physically attractive as possible. So you pitch up with the primed hair and the great makeup and the best outfit. And you're like, okay, I can't breathe right now, but it doesn't matter. You timing dinner, you're like, dinner's only going to take 45 minutes. If I get home in time, this corset won't kill me. And you assume, because the media or what we've been taught as women is, when you put in this much effort for a man, he sees it, he appreciates it, and he's more likely to, what you mentioned, which I didn't even think about, with spiritual attraction, intellectual attraction. But first I need to bait him with all of this, and then he'll be more inclined to invest in me intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, financially, whatever it may be. And I think even when you were speaking to me, I was like, but Alison, isn't that how it's supposed isn't that how it's supposed to be? Like, because that's what we know, right? So how do women, so if women were asking themselves at home and saying, Alison, I get it. Like, you've got the man code, you get it. But then how am I supposed to let them invest in me if I'm not prepping myself for them, or peacocking, as we call it,
Okay. So where do I start? Before I wrote The Queen's Code, which was the book that I knew I had to write, and I didn't know how to write, and that's why we started doing workshops so I could learn how to write this book. I just didn't know it was going to take 15 years to learn how to write it after I started doing workshops. So it really took almost 20 years to learn how to write The Queen's Code. Meanwhile, we published Keys to the Kingdom, which is the prequel to the Queen's Code. And then my publicist said I had to write a nonfiction book. And so we published Making Sense of Men. And in Making Sense of Men, we distinguish between the two different kinds of attraction, between being physically attracted, is the word that men use, and being what my generation would call charmed and enchanted. What younger men would say, they either say she's special, or they'll say there's something about her, or there's something more to her, right? They can tell, right? So what men have told us is it takes about 30 seconds for them to know what a woman could be to them. Yes, 30 seconds. Because they're superficial? No, because they're super perceptive. They're visual, and they can tell a lot just by looking. And we have asked, I can't even tell you how many men. I don't know how many men. We had hundreds of panels of men. What are the most attractive qualities in women? What are the most attractive qualities in a woman to marry, right? And what's so cute is men don't like to be generalized about. They don't like it. It's adorable. but man after man after man would say, it's probably different for other men, but for me, the most attractive quality is self-confidence. Man after man after man would say that. And then the next man, because there'd be 3 or 4 men on a panel, would say definitely self-confidence, but also authenticity. Right? And then be like, oh yeah, self-confidence, absolutely, that's number one. But when a woman's really direct, when she's really direct and the courage it takes to be that direct, oh, that's amazing. Passion, when she's passionate, right? So we worked on this for a long time. Self-confidence, authenticity is number 2, passion's number 3, and then there's the pivotal number 4, which if you have the first 3 and not the fourth one, you're torture and they have to get away from you. The fourth most attractive quality is receptivity, because the self-confidence, the authenticity, and the passion causes men to want to give to you, want to take care of you, want to contribute to you, want to provide for you. The impulse to do that is overwhelming to them. But if we're not receptive to who they are, if we're always questioning their motives and rejecting, I can do that myself, I can do that myself, I can do that myself. Why? I am so out of your league. Why would I let you do anything for me? Right? You shouldn't even look at me, right? We pull all this kind of stuff and we're not receptive to who they are. We won't even just make eye contact because we're afraid that that'll have them, I don't know, jump on us or something. Like they've got no self-control. We think it's, honestly, they go together, Candace. The more we trust our own boundaries, the more receptive we can be. They go together. And we don't trust our boundaries because we don't hold our boundaries. We're disloyal to our own boundaries, right? We have a boundary unless you're really cute. We have a boundary unless you're really rich. We have a boundary unless you're really important, right? Yes. So receptivity, that's what happened to me in studying men. I already was confident, except for when I wasn't. I learned to be authentic about not being confident, which they find so charming. And then the more confident, authentic I became, the more I could just express my passion, our passion makes men feel better. So I men love listening to me. They have an increase in their sense of well-being because I always talk about what I'm passionate about. But being open to who they are, being curious about who they are. I mean, if you wanted to do something very powerful, just be curious. And you don't have to start by being open. I mean, a lot of my work is about releasing and healing and restoring ourselves. And I had to do that. And I've got to, the Queen's Code provides that, our online curriculum provides that, Extreme Freedom provides that. But open is something, it's more like a flower blossoming. There's opening, right? Don't just go, right? But be curious. Curious comes from the Greek word that means to care. Just start to care. Who are you? So who are you? And there's all kinds of questions to ask. And our Understanding Men course, we have a list of 101 great questions to ask men, and we teach women how to listen to men so they'll open up and start sharing. And we really do bring out the worst in them. And the more attracted we are to them, the more we bring out the worst in them, the more attracted they are to us, the more we bring out the worst in them. And it's like make them hungry and starve them at the same time. So a man's interest in you emotionally or intellectually or spiritually, you don't have to earn it by appealing to them sexually. In fact, that's too loud. Just be it. The most stunning thing to a man is a woman who's just being herself. They're stunned by that because they hate pretense. They're looking for who are you beyond the pretense. And if they don't have to look hard and they can just, what you see is what you get, that's one of their biggest compliments. And, women always wonder, why do men go for like the bitches, right? Like, why do they? no, it's not the bitchiness. It's that she's not sucking up to him. They like that she's not sucking up to him. She's not trying to be attractive at any moment. She's just herself, and when she's pissed, she's pissed.
It seems almost counterintuitive what you're saying, right? Especially from the conditioning, the years and years and years of conditioning that we've received, that men want what they want. And therefore, when you cater to all their needs, that's when they should like cling onto you. And I think today, in today's Tinder society, online dating, where everything is so freely available, I think one question women always, while they ask me, they ask, experts, is why did, like, we seem to be having such a great connection and boom, he disappeared, he ghosted, or he just vanished from the face of the planet. And a friend of mine said, actually, I wish he did kind of disappear off the face of the planet, because then I wouldn't feel so terrible about myself. I was like, okay, that's a pretty permanent solution to a temporary problem, but okay. but everything you're saying almost speaks to that. And I want to know, what is it, do you find that in today's society, dating has become a lot harder? Is that what's happening? Or it's just that we have more accessibility to dating?
Oh boy. I have a 5-month answer to that question. So, okay, let me see if I can break it down. So from the first thing that you said, women put way too much stock in connection. Connection is what binds a woman. Connection makes us feel safe. We bet on it, we count on it. It's part of our herd instincts. We cultivate connection. We're devastated in a break in connection. We interrupt men in order to connect with them, right? So we put a lot of stock in connection. In fact, women in sales are shocked that someone with whom they had a great connection bought from somebody else. Okay, so we put way too much importance on connection. Do you need to have a connection? Absolutely, you need to have a connection. But there are 12 things that make a woman the right person for a man. And none of them are connection, and none of them are love. There's 12 things on top of that. And usually what happens is we may have a great connection or feel like we did, but what we did on that date was give them evidence, I'm not the right person for you. And so when someone's not the right person for them, if they're looking for their right person, they are not going to spend more time on them. And to them, this thing about ghosting, women give someone their phone number and they start a relationship. Sorry, that's my dog. Can you hear my dog?
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He agrees with everything you're saying.
I have men working on my yard. They're protecting me from the deer who devour everything. So I'm trying to remember what I was saying. Oh, ghosting, this idea of ghosting. So we think we've started a relationship because we gave you a phone number, we had a conversation, we had a date. So at least do me the courtesy of breaking up with me. They didn't start a relationship. They had dinner. They don't owe anybody anything. They just didn't call. They just didn't call to ask for more. That they're not calling was how they didn't ask for more. They opted out. And you didn't even have to talk to them about it. They did you the courtesy of letting you know you're not the right person for them. And they're not chasing you for sex, even knowing that you're not the right person. Which if a man's hungry enough and you keep appealing to him physically, then it's like, okay, well, if you're going to throw sex at me, I mean, it's like throwing food. I'm hungry, but I already know you're not the one. I knew that before. I knew that in 30 seconds, you're not the one. which is, by the way, one of my bits of coaching for women is do not say the word sex. Because the moment you say the word sex, now sex is a fair topic. And so you'll have an incorrect reading. It's like throwing off a thermometer. Don't say the word sex. Don't lead with your sexual energy. Be playful. You can even be somewhat sensual, but don't be blatantly sexual. It so throws them off balance. And then wait and see how long before they bring up sex. If they bring up sex right away, they don't care about you. They're not emotionally attracted. They're not intellectually attracted. They're not spiritually attracted. Because if they were, they wouldn't risk it by bringing up sex. They bring up sex when there's nothing at risk, when they don't care. So might as well bring up sex. Can I have some? Because they're not afraid what would be in jeopardy, because there's nothing in jeopardy. When they think you're special, they are more likely to not kiss you goodnight. Because they don't want to blow it. They don't want to come on too strong and scare you away, because you're special. You're a unicorn in the forest, and they don't want to scare you away. So the men we think are the least attracted to us could be the ones that are the most in awe of us. And they wouldn't ask us out in the first place if they didn't find us sexually attractive, because that's part of their definition of a romantic relationship. But they're playing it very cool on that front, because you're special. You might be the one.
Wow.
Yes, it's the opposite of what we think. It's the opposite. Yes. So I love what's happening with COVID-19. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to get to know each other like this, where there's no first kissing happening anyway, right? We're not feeling that tension and being afraid. Are they going to try to touch me, not touch me? Do I have to be on guard? We can just get to know because you're on the other side of whatever. There's a lot of kinds of things we can talk about that are amazing. And so I like it. I think dating now, I encourage people, starting a year ago, they're like, oh, well, we can't date. Date more. And yeah, and there's ways to use all the different kinds of dating apps and media, make them work for you. Don't do their program. Use them to do your program. And assume that no one has read your profile, because men are so perceptive and so visual. They take one look at your picture and they reach out. They don't read anything. And but it's a good opportunity to set a boundary and find out, can they follow instructions? They reach out, say, great, send me your text me your phone number, or message me your phone number, and I'll text you and we'll set up a time to talk. If they don't follow the instruction, this is someone who's not going to follow any of your instructions. The end. If they keep reaching out by text, stop responding, because they're not listening to you anyway. So if you're attracted to a man, you see something interesting in his profile, then you can reach out and say, I find you interesting. I'd love to know more about, and actually list things from his profile that you'd love to know more about. If you'd like to share that with me, please message me your phone number and we'll set up a time to talk. Or email me and we'll set up a time to talk. Bypass all that messaging stuff. The bad thing about the messaging stuff is women are really affected by the written word. It's something Luann Brizendine discovered, that we get a text and we have a squirt of oxytocin and we bond to that person. So don't let that texting thing go back and forth. Hardly at all. Just really written word, beware written word. We're suckers for written words. We get all involved. They, on the other hand, process our voices in the same part of their brains that process music. They're very affected by our voices. Yeah.
Wow.
So Can I share something personal?
Please, please.
I was introduced to a man about 4 months ago by one of my students in the Smart Singles Intensive. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she said, "Are you available?" And I was like, "Available for what?" She's like, "I want to introduce you to somebody." I guess technically, yes. And basically, from the first email, the first conversation, we've been together ever since. And he's amazing. He's wonderful. And from the very first conversation, I was doing what I teach my students, right? I have to practice what I preach. And one of the things I practice is, if you're gonna run, run now. So instead of holding back the truth to tell them after they care more about you, which by then you're going to care more about them, be more attached, more invested, not be afraid of giving them up, letting them go, turning them off, they won't like you. All those things that you think would have them reject you, lead with them. Seriously, don't hide them and hold them back. Lead with them. In fact, make a list of them. This is what's true about me, right? So in the first conversation, even before we were texting back and forth, I'm someone who teases, right? I'm a wise ass. I tease. I notice discrepancies, right? I had sent him a text, and I didn't expect him to respond till later in the day, because what he normally did, this is before we ever talked, and I get this text back, my dog woke me up and read your message. And then he responded to the message. And I'm sitting there with the phone in front of me, right? I've got my phone in front of me, and I'm reading this message, and I'm like, and I wrote my response, and then I deleted my response, and then I wrote my response, and then I deleted my response, and then I thought, okay, you either have a sense of humor or you don't, right? And if you don't get my sense of humor, this is never going to work. So, and then I typed it out again. Your dog can read? Wow, right? My dog woke up and read your message, right? Okay. And oh, it was so funny, right? And then I just the first conversation, he knew I was a widow. And so I shared with him about how my husband's part of my life. Yeah, I'm a widow, and this is how my husband shows up in my life. If you're gonna run now, right? and there was this long pause, and oh yeah, I can feel him. Oh, what a warm person. Okay, so we ticked the spirituality box off, right? I have a freaky spiritual life. If you're gonna run now, right? And then something happened. He was listening to me in this kind of way that men can listen when they're really interested in you. They try to impress you. And it's a turnoff what they do when they're trying to impress you, right? Because they don't shut up and let us express ourselves, right? And so I actually said something about it. Like, I can't tell if you're interested in me or you're just interested in how interested I am in you. But I need to be listened to differently. And you could be, not prying because of, the men's code of privacy. But the clue would be, any question I've asked you is fair game to ask me. If you're gonna run now, right? Like, I set a boundary. I stated a need. If you're gonna run now. all those things that you need, express them early and express them whenever they're there. Don't wait. You're finding out, does he care about what you need? Is he willing to adapt to what you authentically need? Don't make any stuff up. What you actually need. I need to go to sleep now. Does he say, okay, good night, I'll call you tomorrow? Or does he keep talking? Like you said, nothing. So there's all these ways to find out, does he respect me? Does he care about what I need? Is he looking out for me? Is he protecting me even from himself and his own desires? These are all things we can find out before we ever meet up with somebody in person.
Wow, Alison. I mean, I'm looking at the time and I'm literally like, but you've just gotten here. How did this happen?
Well,
my mind is blown.
So can I tell you something about that? About just gotten here, as in South Africa? We published the Queen's Code in October of 2012. And we spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to publish it as an ebook on the internet, a chapter at a time. So people could go on this journey for 8 weeks with the characters and transform their own relationships to men into themselves as women. And we put it out into the universe, right? Like, and we were US centric. We didn't even have a country code on our website. And all of a sudden, people, they couldn't put their country in. People would just say their city, right? So I would start my day with typing in, where is, right? And I didn't have to type in, where is Johannesburg? When I saw it on the report, I just burst into tears. Just burst into tears. So I've always had a passion for Africa. I've always had a curiosity and been intrigued by South Africa and the journey of South Africa, do you know? Deep in my heart. So now that I'm finally here, please have me back and we'll do this some more, okay?
Oh, please. Like, that would be such an honor. And it honestly warms my heart that you love my country. I'm a part of the history of South Africa. Hence, I wrote a book called Forgiveness Redefined.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a whole story about forgiveness that I will share with you another time.
oh my gosh.
But
So are you must be familiar with the move Invictus then?
of course, of course,
Okay.
of course.
So the producer of that movie, and Morgan Freeman's business partner is one of my students. Yes, and
Incredible.
biggest fans, like huge, like biggest fans. And she and Morgan Freeman were going to make a movie out of a book that I've never published. And someday they'll make a movie out of one of these books. But so the whole process of the movie being made, and I got to be there at the premiere with Mandela's daughter was there and grandson was there, and shoot, forgiveness is huge. So to be continued.
Absolutely, Alison. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. I will be putting all your links because I mean, I use someone that has got this beautiful gift of teaching from such an authentic spirit that anyone can connect with it. And I think your beauty comes in your storytelling actually is where the lessons lie. So I didn't need to ask you any questions because you tell these beautiful stories that already had so many lessons. And it's honestly it's just, I watched you in awe. I was just like, wow, she's amazing. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I have to do what I do. I have to. So thank you for letting me.
Oh, it's such a privilege. And I'm having you back. Please, please, please. And also not just back for me, but back in South Africa. You need to come. After the COVID is over and all of that, I need to figure out a way to get you here because your message is important, especially here. I think it would be really good here.
So yeah, I promised my best friend many years ago, we're going to South Africa. So just give me a
Okay.
chance.
Well, I'm going to make it happen, Alison. Some way, somehow. We'll have some sort of a conference. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Beautiful.
Alison,
All
thank
right,
you so much for your time.
well,
And I look forward to speaking to you again.
we will.
I mean, I mean, I mean. Could you tell I did not want that episode to end? Alison and I did not even scratch the surface of everything that we could have spoken about and touched on. So I'm going to try my best to ensure we get Alison again for round 2 or round 3 because she's just so darn phenomenal. So if you've liked Alison, be sure to go and check out her work or check out her website. It is worth every penny. And as we always do it, guys, be sure to like, share, subscribe. I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you next week.